Hello and welcome to the JV Gaming channel. This is my first video in my NCAA 14 modded Dynasty series with Hawaii. My goal is to try to make this Dynasty as challenging and as realistic as possible. I'm going to be achieving this with the help of some mods from the revamp community. You may have guessed the first mod we're using is the actual college football revamp mod. They changed a lot of the teams, the uniforms, the playbooks, the coaches. Basically, it makes it look a little bit less like a 2013 game and a little bit more like a 2022 game. Get a shout out to the entire Discord community over there, by the way. If you have any questions on all of these mods, please go there, find the appropriate column and ask the question, and don't at people. The recruiting mod changes our auto-filling CPU recruiting boards, higher starting lock percentage, more realistic names and weights, and the addition of more Hawaiian names. Overall, recruits will commit faster and there will be less leftover 4-stars with nobody recruiting them. Oh, and I'm also not taking any 4 or 5-star players during my dynasty. Yes, only 2 and 3-star players. Hawaii doesn't get them in real life, so and we want a realistic dynasty. The transfer mod makes players available immediately after transferring, as well as nudging players who will receive no playing time into the portal. Again, we will see how this goes in the offseason. I have not tried this yet, but it will be interesting. Hopefully we can get some high-level transfers from some Power 5 programs who want to come and play at Hawaii. Now this one is cool and I have not tried it yet, but the player progression mod makes it possible for players to regress or progress a higher amount. Gone are the days where every single recruit goes up 3 to 6 points in the offseason. So I have no idea what this will look like, but again, it's realistic. The last mod we'll be using is the playoff tool. At the end of the season, we'll be setting up an 18 playoff, so I doubt we'll make it this year, but in the future years, it'll be pretty cool. I am playing on Heisman difficulty with JKit sliders. You can find them on Operation Sports if you're interested. I feel like these sliders are realistic enough where my quarterback's not going to hit every pass, my receiver's not going to catch every catch, and my defenders are going to miss some tackles, but so is the CPUs. Feel like these sliders are a pretty good balance. We'll beat the teams we should beat, and we'll struggle to beat the teams we won't. All right, let's get into the Dynasty. One last rule. I have to play 2 ranked out-of-conference games every year, 1 top 25 and 1 top 10 team. This year, we have chosen number 1, Alabama. I'm not sure why I would do this to myself, but I embrace the challenge. Our second ranked out-of-conference game this year is at Wisconsin. This is a game I would love to win as a real-life Minnesota fan. Ruining their fake NCAA 14 Dynasty supremacy would still make me happy. Our last out-of-conference game is against Fresno State, one of our rivals, who recently joined the Pac-12. We're going to show the Pac-12 they made a big mistake taking Fresno State instead of Hawaii. And beyond that, we have our normal Mountain West Conference schedule. On to recruiting. I want to show you guys real quick on this recruiting mod what some of the other changes are. Look at the number 1 player, he's an 88 overall. In the base game, they do not get over an 81 or an 82. The base game had it unrealistic. Some freshmen come in, they are stars, they are over 90 overall. And some freshmen come in that are highly rated and they're going to be in the 50s overall. There's a lot higher bust to gem ratio in the new patch. It's going to make scouting even that much more important. That is not what you want to see. Look at all that red there. We do not have much depth at offensive line, tight end, or fullback. Or we don't use a fullback, so I need to recruit 2 tight ends and maybe 4 offensive linemen. We're literally losing 8 scholarship players on the defensive line next year. We are going to have 2 returning defensive linemen. We are going to suck next year. So it looks like our 2 biggest needs are offensive and defensive lines. We're going to focus heavily on scouting those players first and trying to find a few gems, some instant starters next year if we can. Another thing I like about this mod is I don't have anybody over a 70 overall on my recruiting board. I feel like that's way more realistic for a school like Hawaii. We have to scout and develop players and turn them into stars. Take a quick look at our preseason board. We have a couple tackles and a tight end right at the top. Very big position of need. Look like we have a couple defensive ends and defensive tackles, so we're getting a lot of interest from players we need. We got a cornerback, halfback, another defensive tackle. Looks like we have a couple other positions of need here too that we are very deep at. Defensive tackle, defensive end. So I'm just going to keep going down through here. I've already used up all my scouting points. Some of these players I need to scout. One more thing about this mod too is look at the names. They're definitely not something you're going to see in the base game. Fabian's Potter, Kenoa, Keimana. I mean, there's one of the Hawaii name examples. Looks like I got plenty of offensive linemen who are interested in me, but I have to scout quite a few of them, so they might be busts. We're running a 4-2-5, so we're definitely going to need more safeties as well. Joshua Moore, Larry Burston. We might have to look at them later, but for now we are just dead set on getting some offensive and defensive linemen. That's a position I love to over-recruit, redshirt everybody, and then just delete them as I go if I need to, but I want 3 or 4 players at each position on the offensive and defensive line. And because I already did all my scouting, there's not a lot to look at on this screen, so we're going to go ahead and look at the depth chart. Coach Santos was not shy when he told the media that there's going to be a quarterback battle this offseason, and it looks like Braden Shager, the sophomore, has won the battle. Coach said it came down to them both having about the same arm and accuracy, but Shager being faster and a bigger playmaker. My source inside the Hawaii organization has told me that Yellen is basically barely below Shager, so if Shager does struggle this year passing the ball, we will see Yellen. For now, he has embraced his backup quarterback role and is very positive, trying to make Shager and the offense perform. Also, Joey is not related to Janet. Coach Santos relies heavily on the run game, so Dedrick Parson coming back for the senior year was huge. We literally have no depth behind him besides a couple of redshirt freshmen, so let's hope that Parson stays healthy the entire year. This is going to be another important position to recruit, as we really need to get somebody with some speed back there. We actually don't have a fullback on the roster. We'll likely just keep recruiting tight ends and changing them to fullback throughout the years. Our top 3 receivers are all rated 74. However, our number 1 receiver is a freshman. This gives him lots of years to grow and potentially be a star receiver. We always put our tight ends at the wide receiver 4 position for run purposes. It just works out great that Phillips better than all of my receivers by a wide margin. Only Jalen Walthall and James Phillips are going to be returning next year for me on this screen. I'm definitely going to need to pick up some wide receivers in the transfer portal or through recruiting. Tight end is one of the most important positions on offense for me. Caleb Phillips and Jordan Murray are both above average tight ends. However, they're both seniors. Depth behind them is rather weak, as we only have one more player who will be returning next year. But as far as the season goes, we're going to have plenty of talent to throw to at least. Senior Il Manning is by far my best offensive lineman at left tackle, being an 86 overall. And behind him is redshirt freshman Kayana DeCambra. Senior Solo Vepulu is moving over from right guard to play left guard. Behind him, we have freshmen Zen Sotelo and junior Taase. So far, we have 3 freshman offensive linemen. Looks like our depth is going to be okay in this position as long as we keep recruiting well. At center, we're starting senior Aliki Tanuvasa. Behind him, we have sophomore Sergio Muasau and sophomore Maurice Ta'ala. Again, at least we have some decent young players, so next year we shouldn't be that bad. 6'6" senior Micah Vanderpool is going to be starting for us at the right guard position, and 2 familiar names behind him. And rounding out our O-line rotation is right tackle Austin Hopp, the senior, 6'6" from Minnetonka, Minnesota. By far our weakest lineman. And behind him, we have Luke Felix Fa'alalo. At right defensive end, we have sophomore Ezra Evamalo. I'm starting him over senior Andrew Chow because they have the same rating. And if I play the sophomore more, he should get better, right? Zach Rittner is also senior, so we literally have no one else besides Evamalo next year. At left defensive end, we have senior John Tuatupau. And just like Evamalo, he's going to be a pass rusher. Senior Andrew Faoli is the backup at a 76 overall, so definitely a solid depth player. I feel like we should be pretty decent on the defensive line. Our top 2 starting defensive tackles are Blessman Ta'ala and Fo'ai Shah. And keeping with the current theme, everybody listed a defensive tackle on this screen will be gone next year. I decided to start freshman Wyndon Ho'ahuli instead of senior J.K. Welch due to the fact that he's a freshman, and just like wide receiver, I want my players to improve, so he's starting. This makes J.K. Welch one of our best backups at 79 overall, and I think at some point I'm going to need him, especially as a sub, so he's going to get some playing time at least. And starting at middle linebacker is Panay Pavahi. Besides that 74 overall speed, he's probably going to be a pretty solid linebacker. And it's also not a surprise that he's a senior, and I don't have very much depth behind him. And the second starter in my 4-2-5 as a linebacker is going to be Isaiah Tufaga. Isaiah is also very slow, but still has a lot of other good features that makes him a good linebacker. And second in the depth chart is Logan Taylor, who is also a senior. And if you take a look at our cornerbacks, the one thing you'll notice is that we have like 0 speed. I'm not sure how we're going to be able to cover Alabama or Wisconsin's receivers. But despite their speed, I'm sure they make it up with some tackling and other skills. I hope. JoJo Forrest is our top cornerback and a junior, so at least I'll have him for one more year. Hugh Nelson is the other starter at cornerback. He's a senior, and he is an 80 overall speed. Going down the depth chart a little bit more, Verdell Edwards Jr. is my nickelback. Very strong, very slow. The only player we're going to be losing going into next year is Hugh Nelson, so I think our secondary will actually be better next year. My starting free safety is senior Leonard Lee. He's a 73 overall and an 80 speed, so again, we don't have a very fast secondary. Number 2 on the depth chart is Noah Kamana, the senior. Playing in a 4-2-5, I imagine he'll get some decent playing time this year. True freshman Matagi Thompson is going to be our starting strong safety. Again, he's not very fast, but he is a true freshman, so I'd like to see how he progresses. The third safety who will play a lot is Malik Hausman. He's a senior. He's 85 speed, 74 overall. think he'll be a good addition to the 4-2-5. And one of the most valuable players on our roster is the kicker, Matthew Shipley. He has an 87 kick power, so definitely will be able to come through in some late game field goal situations, as well as a constant touchback machine on kickoffs. For some reason, Hawaii doesn't even have a punter on their team, so Matthew Shipley's just doing double duty. Fine with me because his kick power is so high anyway, he's probably better than whoever they would have put there. So that's my opening rundown on the mods, the setup, the house rules, the recruiting, the roster. Let's get started with the season. Now remember when I said we're going to have some differences in this Fang's recruiting generator? Well, one of the differences is that these recruits want to visit your school a lot earlier than in the base game. I have 22 recruits ready to visit Hawaii before I even start the season. One of the things you will notice about this recruiting mod is it makes the player's lock percentage go way up, which means they want to commit faster, which means the blue bloods are getting whoever they want quicker so they have more time to scout and recruit those other 4 or 5-star players who on the normal base game aren't getting contacted by anybody but you because they don't have any lock percentage. All right, let's schedule some of these guys. Let's get them on campus. Looking at week 5 of Fresno State, that's a rivalry game. That'll be a way better option than an FBS school, but with 22, I'm sure some of them are going to get in each other's way, so let's see how this works. And about halfway through, we're starting to see this. And this guy does not want to come to one of our 2 recruiting weekends because other cornerbacks are coming. And we go on to the next guy and we have the same issue. It looks like these guys are going to have to come during the bye week as I do not want to schedule them later on in the year. The other thing that's really cool about this is like every recruit has a complimentary visit times 2 or 3. So we're really going to be getting some extra points just based on that alone. Shout out to my recruiting director who scheduled all 22 of those visits in the first day. I did not let him leave until he got it done, and he came through. Scouting is so important when you can only recruit 3 or 4-star players, so let's do some more scouting. And just like that, scouting has paid off as Xavier McClendon went from a 69 to a 73. If we sign this guy, he's literally going to be playing for us next year. We are that thin at defensive line. So he's a priority. We're going to give him 500 points. Now I'm finished scouting my team needs, so now I'm going to go around by position and try to find some more gems. And there we go, our first one, Weston Bateman. While his speed is only 67, look at those throwing stats. Those would be perfect for a freshman who doesn't even have to play his first year. So hopefully we can hold on to him. We're going to give him all of our points we can and offer him a scholarship. One of these 3 running backs needs to be my guy next year. Winston Pitts being a 93 speed overall is my front runner. That is huge. We definitely need that speed guy to run our sweeps. And while Derek Thompson does have some good stats, he's an 84 speed and a 78 acceleration. He's not on our team. Leighton Bieria, a little bit faster, still not fast enough as Pitts. So I think we're going to go with Pitts as our running back this year. If we sign another one of these guys, they'll probably just get redshirted and thrown in the back. I mentioned earlier, we usually sign tight ends and just throw them at fullback, but this guy turned out to be all right, so we're going to try to sign him. For some reason, no wide receivers wanted to come to our school this year, so we'll try to recruit some later and see if we can find some. Tight ends are extremely important in my offense, and I only have 1 returning next year, so this signing right here would be huge. Sam Ford is a 70 overall. He looks pretty balanced overall, which means in a few years, he should be able to catch many passes and block pretty well for me. And like wide receiver, this is another position we'll recruit some more later on. I really want a guy who's pretty good at blocking. David Hopper is my top target at tackle at 70 overall, followed by Victor Cobena, Joseph Sumner Gardner, Mario Still is going to get deleted, and we also have Donnell Wilson. And we really need offensive linemen, so we're also going to spend 500 points on Victor Cobena and give him a scholarship. But we have 167 overall recruit at guard and center both, so they're good players, but I'm not going to spend money on them yet until I see who else I have. We already talked about Xavier McClendon. He's a 73 overall, and he is going to get the 500 points and the scholarship already. Really want to get that guy. As you can see, he's really interested in our playing time and our lifestyle, so that bodes well for us. We probably need to get 2 more, so Jimmy Thomas and Evans Byer definitely looking like second and third options right now. We're going to hold off on defensive end for a second and check out our defensive tackles. We're going to see if we have any really good players here, so we're going to scout the remaining players. And as you can see, it's not looking great. Melifonwu and Murphy are the only 2 guys we're probably going to recruit in this screen. I decided to scout some more players before I throw out more points, and there's a bust of 19, Jaron Lynn. Yeah, we're not going to be signing him. It looks like he's not interested anyway, so it works out. Let's scout another cornerback and yet another bust. That is not good. And we're going to run through our recruits real quick. We got Weston Bateman given 500 points as he's our best overall player that we scouted. At running back, we're putting all of our points behind Winston Pitts as he's our fastest running back and to me has the most potential. Isaiah Farmer is one of the fullbacks of all time. I just want to pick him up for depth reasons. And we're putting all of our money behind Sam Ford, the talented tight end, really hoping we can make up the 2,450 point difference. Going with David Hopper and Victor Cobena at the tackles. We're not spending any points at guard and center at this time. Choosing between Jimmy Thomas and Evans Byer, I decided to go with Jimmy Thomas as he's the better overall recruit, but I threw some points at Byer just to make sure he knew I was interested in him for later. Coach Santos could not decide between J.R. Murphy and Michael Melifonwu, so we decided to recruit them both equally. You can literally never have too much depth on the defensive line as far as I'm concerned. The last player we're throwing some points at is Joshua Moore, as we really need some more safeties for this 4-2-5. That's going to be it for my first video where I covered the offseason and the week 1 recruiting. Next video will be when we play number 1 Alabama, so please tune in for that, and thank you for watching.